So have you used the deep web today? I know, you're probably thinking, absolutely not. No way. I stay far away from that stuff. Well, actually, I've got some news for you. If you logged into your bank account this morning, checked your personal email, or even just fired up a paid streaming service to watch a show, you are already swimming in the deep web. It's a term that sounds incredibly mysterious and a little shady, right? But it's actually just an essential, everyday part of our digital lives. Welcome to this explainer. I am so thrilled you're here today because we are going on a really fascinating descent. We're going to dive way beneath the sunlit surface of the internet you know and love and explore the hidden layers lurking below. By the time we wrap up, you're going to have a crystal clear map of where your data actually lives and what's really going on in the internet's most secretive corners. Here is our dive plan for today. First, we'll map out the Internet Iceberg. Second, we'll see what actually lives down there. Third, how people access it. And finally, we'll talk about treading carefully and review the very real risks. All right, part one, the Internet Iceberg. We're breaking down the surface, deep, and dark web. Starting our descent just beneath the visible surface, we immediately hit the deep web. Put simply, this is the portion of the internet that standard search engines just cannot index. It requires a direct URL, a password, or some sort of authentication to get in. Think of it kind of like a private members-only club, or maybe your own personal diary. The content is technically on the internet, sure, but it is explicitly gated to keep the general public out. And then we reach the very bottom, the dark web. This is a deliberately hidden, highly specialized subset of the deep web. You can't just use a normal browser here. It strictly requires special software, most commonly a browser called Tor, to access highly encrypted websites that usually end in .onion. If the deep web is a private club, the dark web is basically an underground speakeasy. The doors are completely invisible unless you have the secret knock and the specialized tools to actually find it. Now, the absolutely crucial distinction between these two hidden layers comes down to privacy versus anonymity. When you log into a portal to check your medical records, the system knows exactly who you are, but it protects that data from everyone else. That's privacy. The dark web, on the other hand, focuses on total anonymity. Down on the darknet, the whole point is that neither the user nor the site owner knows who the other person is or even where they're located. And honestly, looking at the numbers completely shatters a massive pop culture myth about the internet. People always think the dark web is this huge, sprawling place. But look at the scale here. The deep web, where all our private data lives, makes up over 90% of the web. The surface web, the stuff we search every day, is maybe 4 to 9%. And the dark web? It's a tiny sliver, literally less than 1%. It is incredibly small, but heavily concentrated. Moving right along to part two, what actually lives down there? It's truly a double-edged sword. Let's ground ourselves in reality for a second. Look at these everyday uses of the deep web. Online banking, personal email, academic databases, paid streaming like Netflix, corporate internets. The deep web is not malicious at all. In fact, without the deep web, the internet as we know it would literally cease to function safely. It's the vault that holds the entire machinery of our modern digital society. Think of the deep web as a towering, highly secure building with cameras and guards, secure, regulated, and actively protecting your privacy. Now, contrast that with the anonymity of the dark web, which feels more like someone sitting alone in the dark, bathed only in the glow of a laptop screen. It's inherently mysterious. It operates entirely outside the view of normal search engines and totally bypasses standard security protocols. And this brings us to the dark web's dual nature. Actually, get this. The Tor network wasn't even created by hackers. It was developed back in the 1990s by the US Navy to protect the anonymous communications of intelligence operatives. And today, it still acts as a massive lifeline for whistleblowers, dissidents living under oppressive regimes, and journalists. But because it offers near total anonymity, it has simultaneously become a haven for cybercriminals running illegal black markets. But yeah, that anonymity comes at a serious cost. Just look at this staggering number. Over 15 billion. That is the estimated number of compromised credentials currently circulating on dark web forums right now. That is enough to make your head spin. It perfectly highlights the dark interplay between the layers of the internet. You see, data is usually stolen from a breach on the deep web, like a company's private database getting hacked. And then it's dumped, traded, and monetized down on the dark web. Now hold on, let's burst a pop culture bubble real quick. Movies and TV love to paint the dark web as a place where you can easily find, hitmen for hire or horrifying live streams. But in reality, cybersecurity experts and law enforcement generally agree that those specific extreme examples are almost always elaborate scams designed to steal your cryptocurrency, or they're direct sting operations set up by the police to catch people looking for that stuff. Okay, part 3, how to access it. Let's look at the tools of the trade. So accessing the dark web is very deliberate. It is literally impossible to just accidentally stumble into it while you're shopping for shoes or reading the news. The precise technical steps require turning on a trusted VPN for an extra layer of security, then downloading the official Tor browser, and finally, typing in a very specific, incredibly complex .onion URL. You really have to know exactly where you are going. To understand how that software actually protects you, visualize it like a dense matrix of light and data. When you use the Tor browser, your internet traffic isn't taking a straight path from A to B. Tor, which stands for the onion router, wraps your connection in multiple layers of encryption, like an onion, and bounces it through several random computers, called nodes, all over the world. By the time your request actually reaches a website, your original IP address is completely obscured in that digital matrix. Finally, Section 4, tread carefully. Let's talk about the risks. We really have to examine the predators lurking down in the deep, because the threats are severe. You're looking at environments completely laced with malware and drive-by downloads, phishing and exit scams, which is where illicit marketplaces just pack up and vanish with everyone's crypto, are basically an everyday occurrence. Furthermore, user error is a huge threat. If you accidentally log into your real personal email or enable the wrong browser script while using Tor, boom, you instantly destroy your own anonymity. And hey, while simply using Tor is perfectly legal in most countries, engaging with illicit markets can bring down severe legal consequences. I really want to emphasize this one golden rule of the deep. On the dark web, if you send Bitcoin to a seller and they vanish, you have zero recourse. It drives home a super harsh reality. There is absolutely zero customer service down there. You can't just call your credit card company and ask for a chargeback. It is the ultimate trust-no-one environment. You never even know if the person you're interacting with is a scammer, a hacker, or an undercover federal agent. So, let's summarize our descent by quickly recapping the key differences across the 3 layers. The surface web is public, accessible to anyone with a standard browser, and surprisingly small. The deep web is massive, over 90% of the web, and it requires standard browsers plus logins to access your private everyday content. And finally, the dark web is just a tiny fraction of a percent. It requires specialized tools like Tor, and it functions entirely on the principles of secrecy and anonymity. So, having successfully mapped the Internet Iceberg today, I want to leave you with this final question to ponder. As cyber threats continue to rise from those hidden depths, how secure is your piece of the deep web? Remember, the vast majority of the data traded in those dark corners was originally stolen from everyday deep web accounts. So take some time to audit your digital footprint, use strong passwords, maybe turn on two-factor authentication, and protect your private corner of the internet. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Stay curious and please stay safe out there.